Right. I call the October 15th, 2019 Finance Committee meeting to order at 6:47 p.m. The chair would entertain a motion for considerations of claims.
I move for consideration of claims to be paid in the amount of $451,887.36. Elon credit card in the amount of $3,881.34. Manual check in the amount of $77,196.24. Payroll liabilities for 9/27/19 in the amount of $449,581.50. For a total of $982,546.44.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any discussion on the claims? Questions or?
None, Your Honor.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Vote aye. Motion passes. Any other business for finance tonight?
I have none, Your Honor.
I have none, Your Honor.
Okay, we'll adjourn at 6:48 p.m. then.
Now call October 15, 2019 regular meeting of the Riverton City Council to order at 7 p.m. I will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, and Councilman Rhoda will give us the invocation.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Heavenly Father, we thank you for another day, the many blessings and opportunities you offer us. We ask for your wisdom and guidance as the council convenes tonight to make the best decisions for the city of Riverton. Father, we just pray in your name that you can lead us to make the best judgment for everybody. In thy name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Corey. Would the city clerk please conduct a roll call?
Yes, Your Honor. Councilman Corey Rhoda.
Here.
Councilman Kyle Larson.
Here.
Councilwoman Rebecca Schatza.
Here.
Councilman Tim Hancock.
Here.
Councilman Mike Bailey.
Here.
Councilwoman Carla Borders. Councilwoman Carla Borders. Mayor Richard Gard.
Here. Did we lose that connection?
Let me check, Your Honor. She could hear us just a second ago.
Okay. I just wonder if I need to make a excuse her.
One moment, Your Honor. Seems like she's on, but I can't get her.
Okay.
Give me a second. I don't think you need to excuse her just yet, Your Honor.
Thank you. I declare that there's a quorum present. The chair would entertain a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilman Larson and second by Councilwoman Schatza. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed, say nay. Motion passes. Communication from the floor. Anyone in the audience wishing to address the council regarding an item that is already on the agenda will be given the opportunity to speak later on. I would ask those individuals who wish to address the council at this time to approach the podium and identify yourself for the record. Councilman Bebout, or Senator Bebout. I just made you a councilman.
This would be all right here, Mr. Mayor.
That'd be great.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor and members of the City Council. My name is Eli Bebout, and presently I serve as a senator for Senate District 26 here in Riverton and most of Fremont County. What I want to do is take an opportunity tonight, Mayor, and for the members of the council to talk to you a little bit about a couple of things that's on my mind, and one of them has to do with air enhancement. And I'll talk a little bit about where we are, how we got where we are, what I think we're going to do, and some of the real concerns I have as we move forward to try to get this thing in proper perspective, to have a sustainment of it, because it's so critical to Riverton. And then the other thing I thought I'd talk a little bit about is what I'm doing now in the Senate. I'm chairman of the Appropriations Committee, and so that's there's a lot of activity, a lot of things going on relative to that. What I thought, Mayor, is just give you sort of where we are as of this budget, this next fiscal year as we end in June 30th of 2020, what I see, what happened, what the budgets were, revenues, and some of those issues, and then talk a little bit about how I feel we move forward. And Mayor, what it is, it's kind of the good news and bad news, and I'll get into that a little bit later, talk about the budget. So with that, I'd like to go ahead and talk a little bit about air enhancement. And one of the things I also do is I serve on the Air Transportation Select Committee, and there's 6 of us on that committee, and we just had a meeting up in Jackson, and Kyle was going to attend, and he had a family emergency, couldn't make it. But it was a good meeting, and we talked about air service and the importance to Wyoming and what's going on. And of course, this council in Fremont County and Kyle and all that working group have done an excellent job of moving that forward. And what I want to talk a little bit about is how we set it up and where we are. And you're all very familiar with the minimum revenue guarantee, that enhancement program, and what that's done, and the importance of that to Wyoming and particularly to Riverton. And my numbers may be a little off, but I think we, during this fiscal year, the end of June 30th of 2019, the Riverton received about $935,000 from the state. And then we locally came up with around $650,000. That may be about right. So it's been a big deal. And, we spent typically in our budgetary process maybe $3 million a year to do that. Of course, the communities, everybody's eligible for it, but the ones that are really benefiting from it most directly are Riverton, Sheridan, Rock Springs, Gillette, those 4 communities. But as we move forward, it was sort of a hit and miss, and it was really hinging on the whims of the legislature, if you will, in terms of funding. And so we came up with an idea, and a lot of it came from when we were looking at the things that are important for economic development, job growth in our various communities, and air service is certainly one of the most important things. So we said, well, what can we do to have a longer sustained program to provide air service to our citizens? And we were able to do that, and we all know about Denver Air. They're doing a great job, and I fly it every chance I can, and it's, in some ways it's sort of sad that we're going to terminate that agreement, but as we looked to this, we figured out what can we do more long-term, and so we came up with a number of $15 million that we were going to set aside to be able to develop this. And of course, there's a lot of consternation in members of the legislature, including me, about private sector versus public sector involvement, how we do that in terms of subsidies. So we wanted to be sure that we were in a situation that we just didn't spend $15 million the first year and then have no air service the second year. So we set aside the money, capture it, if you will, be sure that it wouldn't be going spent somewhere else, because that happens quite regularly. And then we set it aside, but it was contingent on us coming back with a plan of how we wanted to move forward. And of course, we have to have the governor involved. They're the executive branch. We're the legislative branch. We appropriate. It's up to him and his executive branch to see it through. So we set aside this $15 million, came back and worked on it in our budget bill with YDOT and the Aeronautics Commission. And also we set aside in that budget bill $3 million to be sure that if it all fell through for the next fiscal year, that would be the one that would end June 30th of 2020. We had $3 million in there to continue to do the minimum revenue guarantee. So we had a backstop, if you will. We didn't come to an agreement with anybody on the bids. We didn't know who was going to bid. Then we would be able to have a backstop so we would still have the minimum revenue guarantee. We had the bids, we went out, we had an RFP that we set aside, and in that budget bill we said that we're not going to spend it all the first year, so no more than $6 million can be spent in any one year. That's one of the parameters. We said, everybody will have an early morning flight, there'll be 2 flights a day minimums, a lot of different things. We want to co-chair, not just with United and Denver Air, but with United and other affiliated companies with SkyWest. And as they evaluated these bids, it became apparent that SkyWest would be the low bidder. I wanted to have the legislature involved directly in that negotiations. I, as a businessman, we really can't do that because of the separation of powers. We had a couple people that acted just as a liaison as we went through that process. Long story short, June 26th, Kyle, we signed an agreement with SkyWest. They're going to provide the RJ200s. They're going to do the co-chair. We're going to do all these things, and we're going to still have matching money, though. And Mayor, you and I have talked about that, where right now we're a what you call a critical access hospitals.
Right.
I keep talking about hospitals too, but critical air service, which means 60% state, 40% local. If you are market driven like Jackson, Casper, and Cody, it would be the other. It would be reversed because you're a market share at 60% local, 40% state. We talked about that, and that's still a huge lift for communities like Riverton and counties like Fremont. So are we going to be able to change that or do something with that formula? Don't know. You know, we'll look at it, we'll try, and when I get into the budget scenario, you'll see a little bit of what we're facing as a state in terms of revenues, expenditures, and all those things. But we'll try to do that. But the thing that's so important, and this is what I really want to impress upon you, is we have to buy into this. I mean, the legislature stepped up. We as taxpayers have stepped up. But if we're not flying and utilizing it, we'll use it for 3 or 4 or 5 years, it'll go away. And we've lost a huge opportunity. You know, one of the things, our employments are 7,000, 6,000, something. They were down lower than that. We need to get to 10,000 because we need that 850,000 from the FAA. And we need to stop the leakage. The leakage is going all around. It's going to Utah, to Billings, to Colorado, to Casper. So we need to buy into this and fly out of Riverton. And if we don't do it and get this thing so it's trying to be sort of self-sustaining in the sense that we get the employments up, people are buying tickets, it'll pay for itself. You know, 4 or 5 years from now, we're not going to have it. So that's the message that I want to bring to you. We made the commitment, all of us collectively, to move this thing forward, but we need to be able to, we want to fly it, we want to buy into it and do it. And that's the bottom line, Mayor, because if we don't, the money will come, the money will go, and then we'll be without air service. And we do not want to be without air service. I do not want to be without air service. One of the things I might be able to do is set aside some additional money during this budget session, you know, sort of a trust account, if you will. That's going to be hard to do as well. And you'll see when I talk about all the demands, but I'm going to look at that as well. And so with that, Mayor, I'll be glad to answer any questions about the air service component. If you have any questions right now, and if anybody had a cup with some water in it, that'd be nice too. Do you furnish water to the city of Riverton, or you don't do that?
Budget cut.
Are there any questions about my interpretation? There you go.
Fine.
You're the mayor, you're supposed to help everybody.
That's right. Eli, you're exactly right, and
This is flavored water.
it is good water, not just regular water. And we've been trying to push that as a council and as a group of individuals that we could impress upon the citizens of Fremont County to not leave Fremont County to fly. And I think that's going to work. This new airplane that you guys arranged for, we've had some negative comments, but SkyWest is great. I was just looking at emails tonight, and all of the fares are at least a third lower than what they have been, and some are even lower than that. And so we're going to get a 50-seater jet. We would encourage everybody to do what they could to use the airport, plan some trips. We'll have some fun activities, come back, and let's try to get those employments back up to 10,000 so we get that share money back.
That was one of the things I think that helped SkyWest with those RJ200s that do carry the 50 people. That's the jet, the size of that jet. And you know, the other thing that happened up at the airline rendezvous in Jackson was SkyWest was there, American was there, Delta, United. You know, they gave us a state of the state in terms of the airways nationally as well as how they see Wyoming. And SkyWest is pretty positive.
Yep.
They really are about this, and they understand. They understand that to make it really work long term, we've got to get the employments up. You know, I don't know what Riverton used to be, but it's probably 18,000, 19,000 at one time. It's the number that it's in the back of my mind, and we can get there again. We really can. And so it just needs to happen.
And we really do appreciate your work, and you've done a yeoman's job of putting that in place, and we do recognize how hard you've worked, and we appreciate that.
Well, let's just keep the word, get the word out to people to fly. And, you know, it's Riverton, it's Fremont County, it's Lander, all of us. I mean, all of us got to get together on this deal.
Denver Connection flew in today from the emails that I've got with a 50-seat jet to run some practice landings on our runway. So, you know, what a blessing that is. It's benefited them to be associated with Riverton, and it's definitely benefited us. So,
No question about it. Of course, the big thing there was the co-chair, too, because as I understand it, Kyle, you might know better, but, you know, in terms of if you went with Denver Air, they couldn't offer the same co-chair that SkyWest could, which is all airlines.
that's right.
Which is huge.
The interconnection is really good.
Well, good. Any other questions on that?
Anybody?
Thanks, and let's all fly Riverton.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. I mean, it's so important. The next thing is our budget, and you're going to have that, you know, as all cities and towns and counties do in our state too. And this really is the good news and bad news. And I'll start with the good. It's always easier to talk about the good news first. And the good news is you know, we have about $20 billion in different accounts that we've fought for and worked hard for many, many, many years to put together. And you all know what they are. The Permanent Middle Trust Fund's about $8 billion. The School Land Income Fund's about $4 billion. Our Workers' Comp's about $2 billion. The really neat thing is what we call LISRA, which is our rainy day savings account. It's about $2 billion. Our Pooled Income Fund is about $4 billion. And you add those up, it's about $20 billion that we have. And years ago, when I first was chair of the Appropriations Committee in like 2013, it was 8 by 18, 8 billion by 18, and we made that. We made a real conscious effort, and we had some revenue there, thank goodness, for minerals. We were able to diversify in the sense that we put that money into savings, and we were able to get there. What I like to see is higher, sure. And that's part of the challenge we have as we move forward, is you have to inflation-proof those funds. And if you don't put money in there at the rate of inflation, as inflation grows, demands go up, and you're not keeping up with your sustained revenues from the interest you get on it, you're going south. And quite frankly, one of the concerns I have is that we're not doing that. I think we're starting to spend those reserves, if you will, and not putting back into the permanent funds to sustain us for a longer period of time, and we're spending the money now for short-term things. But that's the good news in terms of the money we have and what we set aside. This budget year we're in right now, it will be completed in June 30th of 2020. And we spent about, the revenues we had for this 2-year budget cycle was about $4 billion, okay? And we spent about $5.1 billion. So do the math. We spent about $1.1 billion over our revenue stream. Now, it's not like we didn't have the money, because we did. And what we did is we used diversions, we used savings accounts, different things to come up with that money. But it's just like in our personal lives, the end of the month, when you start using your savings account, you get nervous. So I'm nervous about what we did in the last session. And we did spend $1.1 billion more than our revenue stream. As we look to the next session, and that's what we're going to be doing in January, you look at the demands of the state, it's not a real pretty picture. However, like I said, the good news is we've got these reserve funds and we've got the money in the LISRA account. The other thing we also have from these investments, if you've been following the stock market with the new leadership out of Washington and what's going on with the markets, you know, we probably have, if we were to sell our stocks, we, the state of Wyoming, and all these different funds, we would probably have a $1 billion worth of realized capital gains. There's a big difference between unrealized, we know about it, we're in the market, and you see where your stock's up, but you don't sell it, and realized. So a lot of people want us to profile unrealized capital gains and spend the money before we even have it. It's a terrible idea. But we do have those unrealized gains out there that we might do something with. That's up to the state treasurer. How they do that and what they do is something to be decided, be determined. I can tell you right now, we also had some losses we had to cover with some of the these emerging markets that you're probably very familiar with, and it was a bad play for the state. We probably lost $250 million there. So we have some things going on our investment side, but once you sell, and take those realized capital gains and realize them, then you have to put the money somewhere. And of course, a lot of people just want to spend it. And I don't want to do that. So that's out there as well. But as we look to the next budget cycle, this is where I think is really important. And what we're looking at is realistically the general fund is probably flat. You know, we've had these coal companies that you're all very familiar with what's going on with the coal, and you know, whether you buy into global warming or climate change or whatever, the bottom line is it's had a devastating effect on our coal industry. It's not going to come back to the levels we've seen in the past. It just is not going to come back. We're all familiar with what the largest utility provider in our state's doing about these coal-fired power plants. That's not going to change. None of that's going to change in terms of those revenues generated from that or what coal's done for us. But what you're going to see is we do have a pretty good sustainable revenue stream from interest on our permanent funds and from taxes that we collect. The legislature tried to do something about broadening our tax base, very little success. Do I see that changing much in the next session? Probably not. It's too bad. There's certain things we needed to do. I supported a lodging tax. I can't believe we didn't do it, but we didn't. That was a no-brainer for me. It would have helped just a little bit, but we didn't do that. But as we look to that, we see that the general fund is sort of flat, even with these impacts with coal and everything else. The big gorilla in the room, no surprise to any of us, is K through 12. And K through 12 is sitting there at about probably $250 million deficit for this next biennial budget. And the more concerning thing is you go to the next biennial budget, and I believe in looking out longer term, it's about $500 million. Of course, K through 12 already have some inflationary protection in the budgets that we do and in the funding model that's set up by the courts. You know, and with these, they have automatic step increases, so they continue to receive money. And yet on the flip side of that, it's pretty difficult where the city of Riverton and, you know, your revenue streams, you're strapped and everything else, you know, how do we deal with that without what I call these automatic increases, these escalators that they have. So how we deal with K through 12 will be interesting. You know, they talk about the cuts and that, and you can get into that debate. But if you look at where we spent on the ADM the last, like 2 years ago, it was around 16,000. I saw a number the other day as 18,000. That doesn't look like a cut to me, but that's to be determined. You know, what we do with education will be very important, and how we handle it and what we do. There's some other things we're working on that I think is really important that we should be talking about and considering, and one of them is government efficiency. We spend a lot of time on that. And just a second. What flavor is this?
Grape.
Grape. That's why it's colored grape.
My wife takes good care of me.
But the efficiency should help us. I think there's things we can do in terms of making government more efficient, better providing the services. There's numbers all over the place, but there may be 20 or 30, 40 million we could save there. We can have a good investment philosophy in terms of how we spend our money. We need to talk about that with all these funds we have. But the other thing is reductions. And, you know, in my life, in my business world, if I don't have the money, I just can't raise my prices. I have to look at reductions. You're limited on what you do as a city. We're limited as a county what we do. So maybe there's some responsible reductions we can make. Don't know. You know, we'll look at all of them. We'll look at K through 12. We'll look at government, community colleges, all of that. But the alarming thing even with that, we have this budget cycle coming up. So the governor's going to present a budget, and everybody's lining up with their wants and what they want to have or what they think might be needed. We call them the exception budgets. That number, over and above what I'm talking about, could be anywhere from $400 to $600 million. And it's our capital construction budget of $200 or $300 million, and I say 200 or 300 because we don't know where it's going to end up. That's for capital construction. The University of Wyoming wants $93 million, not counting their capital construction requests. You know, we've got the school facilities wants about $240 million for their capital construction. Part of the school facilities, though, in the state is we have a deferred maintenance cost in there, which is something we really need to do. So that's something that we should spend and we will spend. And then you've got the agencies themselves are going to have this, that. We got Department of Health. We got different things that we have to deal with. We have the group insurance plan. I don't know what Riverton's going to do about the state plan, but we're $35 million short, and that from the premiums that are going up. So you can see there's a lot of demands placed on the budget. So it's going to be an interesting budget session, but the cup is half full. I'm really optimistic we'll go down there and we'll do our job like we always do. We're a citizen legislature. Let's don't ever change that. And we'll come back and do the best we can, and we'll get through it. We will. The last thing that's so important to us in this state is where do 50% of our revenues come from right now? Oil and gas and minerals. And we should be behind the development responsibly of those in a big way. The Moneta Divide, my goodness, I can't believe 10 years later and the BLM still does not have a record of decision on that EIS. Think about that. 10 years we've been waiting, and now they've delayed it another year. The DEQ's done their part. Now we're waiting for EPA out of Denver to do their whatever they're going to do with the water discharge. I mean, they've done the studies. They've analyzed it. That project should move forward. All of us got to get behind it. There's no reason why we shouldn't do that, and other projects that are very similar to that. If you look at the state of Wyoming, we continue to take away the opportunity to develop our minerals, a huge mistake. And what we need to do, all of us, you, the council, the mayor, as individuals, we need to do all we can there. I'm rambling a little bit, Mayor, and you got other things on the agenda. I'd just like to close with thank you for what you do. Appreciate your service. As elected officials, it's not easy. I get it, and you do it for the love you have for not only our community, our county, but our state, our country. So thank you for your service. I didn't talk about your revenues because I figured that might be a question. So that's all I have, and thanks for being here and the opportunity to speak to you.
Thank you, Senator. We do have a letter drafted on the Moneta Divide that Tony's put together, and we're going to get all the mayors to sign it, all the legislators to sign it, and take it to the governor. So we'd like your input on that. You should be seeing that in the next week or so.
This week.
This week. So thank you very much for all you do for us. We do appreciate you.
Any questions on your revenue streams?
Well, we want that, we can't see that reduction. We want you to fight for our 1.5.
105.
Yeah, excuse me, 105, and we need that. We don't, anything reduced there is going to make us all scream and cry. And so we see the great expenditures at the University of Wyoming and the community colleges, and I think that where I see that, the University of Wyoming is $475 million, and community colleges are $260 million, and all the communities in Wyoming, which I think there's 93, 95, get to share $105 million. And so we really do need you to hold the line there if you can. It would be nice. The governor's looked at an increase. It'd be nice if we could get an increase there, but we need as much of that as we can get. So.
Well, one of the good things Governor Meade has done from the previous governor, you know, we've reduced our budgets in terms of our expenditures in the general fund from like $3.6 billion down to $3.1 billion. And so we've really tried to trim, and you can go so far, and then you're not getting fat, you're getting muscle and bone. So there's a balance there between going too far and what we need to do there. So that's out there, and it's something to think about. The other thing is, you know, with the cities, towns, and counties, you know, I really think that we've done enough, and not. Let me see how I want to say this. We've been very generous to Cheyenne, state government, and to our university and our community colleges, and I'm proud of what we've done. Should we do things in the future? Sure, but we also need to be thinking about the rest of the state. And we need to do all we can for the rest of the state, and just talking about services delivered by state government. You know, do we need to have all those services in Cheyenne? I don't think so. Maybe we should move some of those services to other parts of the state to get a better return on our money. Instead of driving for a day to get where you're going, do 2 days of work, and then drive back.
Right.
You know, move those services out of Cheyenne and look at ways to better, and that's part of the efficiency and how we can better do that. Boards and commissions. You know, we have a huge number of boards and commissions, and maybe we can save some money there. So there are opportunities out there, but we need to hear from you and what you think. And the way to have solved part of the problem with cities, towns, and counties, if we just change that formula, the 71-39, you know, 71-29, excuse me, where more of the money went to cities, towns, and counties out of sales tax rather than the state. You know, we had a chance to do that, and your Fremont County delegation was on that bill, and we couldn't get the cities and the counties to agree. So here we are today. I think there's some other things moving forward, but same old, same old. If you and the counties can't agree, we're going to be kicking that can down the road, and this same conversation will be here 2, 3, 4 years from now. And we spent our savings, and there we are.
Yeah, and that, you're exactly right. We'll work on that. We'll try to get there.
And we're right there with you. You know, I've always said the best money spent is closer to the people, and that's right here in this room.
We have the mayors together, and we'll get the commissioners, so we'll go after that and get that working for us. So
Okay.
we do appreciate it.
Well, thanks, and just let me know anything that comes up, and let's really get behind these mineral development prospects and get people to fly Riverton. You know, that's so important. That's all I had, Mayor, members of the council. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Eli. Appreciate you.
Senator.
Mayor, just for the record, we did have some technical problems. We need to get Mike and Carla back on the line. So we can do that either now or we can wait.
Mayor,
Let's take this one and then.
City Council,
Yes.
my name is Ron Chapin, and I come to take some of your air. So what I've got is I'm trying to sell a house at Sunset, and I had an appraiser come in and look at it, or assessor over here at the lender, and what they said it was worth. Well, I was paying taxes at $320,000. So they came in January, February. They reappraised it, 301. I tried to sell it. I've had it up for sale for the last 7 or 8 months. 270,000. 270,000. So I'm giving them $25,000-$30,000. There's no money. There's no money in Riverton. No jobs.
Yep.
We're talking about the oil field. No oil field. That's where the county used to make the money. So, and then about 5 years ago, on 239 Sunset, my house was broke into. Guns were taken, the whole 9 yards. And about 4 days ago, my house was broke into again. And I had to, my neighbor called me up and said the kids were out playing and stuff like that. She had contacted them, so I went down and see what they've done or whatever they were doing. Well, I walked in the house and I caught 4 of them. 2 young kids was 14, 16, the boys, and the girls were 12 and 14. They were inside living at the house. And the boys jumped out and ran. The girls I could talk to. And I talked to the girls. I said, "Why did you do this? Why did you do this?" And they said, "Well, we didn't do it, the boys." I said, No. You're part of it. You stayed overnight at the house. And one of the girls, the 14-year-old, told me, she said, "They'll let us go." The boys, they were gone. And our city police had already been notified, stuff like that. They were chasing them again. And the girls told me that we had a problem, that the boys already, and both of them, the girls, swiped a car about 4, 5, 6 days ago, and our city police caught them, and guess what they did? Let them go. Okay. The girls said when they were leaving, said, "We'll be released as soon as we get out of here." Sure enough, they were released after they broke in, and I caught them. They were still released. The next day, our city police came again. 4 of them again. Looking for the same people. Looking for the same people. That's where the money goes. We're chasing, our city police has better things to do than chase kids around. And the kids are 12 to 14 years old. Why aren't they in school? Why isn't the parents held accountable? We're not giving the kids a chance. Not a chance. So what I'd like to know is what Riverton is planning on doing. You know, if we're not going to hold them, and you know, 4 police cars chasing, you know, that's where our tax money is going. You heard about the dog chasing the tail. That's what the city police has to go through. I feel sorry for them.
Ron, since you spoke to me, I've been able to talk with the chief and the arresting officer. I also had Patrick LeBron came and spoke to us yesterday. We're going to try to get a fix on this. The problem is monumental. Juveniles are hard to hold in our court system today, but we're going to try to get our arms around this and work together and see what we can do to make things work. We apologize for your problems. We're grateful that you're as kind as you are.
It's not my problem. It's every one of us problem.
It most certainly.
We got us a problem here in Riverton.
We do, and kids that age ought to be in school. You're correct,
Yep.
and their parents are not in the picture. They're not willing to participate or to help, and so we are at a handicapped position. But we're going to go to work on it, and we understand.
Well, see, that same night that they broke into my house, there was a bicycle showed up at the same time. Okay, there was a young, well, whether it's him or her, was walking the dog at midnight. Well, and she called the police up and said, I don't know, there's a dog behind, or the bike was behind the garbage can. How did she know? She's walking that dog, or he.
Yep.
So, you know, I found out later that the kids staying, you know, at the low-income housing, but the parents weren't there. But they were there for 4 or 5 days.
You have hit a raw nerve, and we will do our very best to answer questions on that and get it taken care of.
Yeah.
I don't have any more answers for you tonight, but we are working on it.
Yeah, I'm sure you are. But I just, you know, it's the kids that I'm worried about.
And you're right.
You know, when they're 12, 14 years old, you can mold them.
Yep.
But when they get 17, 18 years old and still getting released out, they don't have no respect for anybody.
You're
And
correct.
then we're going to suffer in Riverton. We are already.
You're correct.
So, but I appreciate it if you could just keep me informed, you know.
Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else that would like to talk to the council? Now, can we reconnect?
We'll do it right now, Your Honor.
Your Honor, it looks like there's.
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, please. Thank you.
My name is Jim Barber. My wife and I live down on the end of Webwood. We're out on the east end. We're at 2245. And, you know, every spring, when they start the irrigation, we'll get a little seepage down there in the groundwater. And this last year, we've lived there 17 years, by the way. This last year, here, right around the 15th of the last month, it got a little out of control. We were getting, a year ago, probably 1 to 2 gallons a day, seepage, that we could handle. And now we're up to about 12 to 15 gallons an hour. And when they shut off the, when they finally shut off the irrigation here on the 1st, I believe, now it's died right down to nothing. But my problem is we've lost carpeting, and money and drywall and stuff like this. It's like, what has changed? Do we even know what has changed to flood us out like that down there? And I know I'm not the only one down there. But I can't give you names of the other people that have had problems. But we're on the east end, the very east end. We're even east of Smith Road. There's 3 houses down there. I'm the middle one. And I'm hoping that somebody's got some answers for us on what we can do to take care of that. Don't want to have to move, don't want to have to do anything.
We don't want you to move either.
I don't want to move.
We will, Kyle and I will, and Tony will take a look at that and see if there's something we can do to help you. Okay?
Would love that, sir.
Okay.
We're at 2245. We can show you around down there on what I know. I know there's piping down there in the ground and I talked to certain people, and nobody seems to know where anything goes.
Could I have that address again?
2245. We're about as far east in Webwood as you can go. There's one house beyond me.
We will be in contact with this week with you. Okay?
We'd love to see you, sir. Thank you.
Is there anyone else?
I think they're on too, Your Honor.
Mike and Kyle, are you with us? Or Carla?
0.
Yes, I'm here.
Thank you. We appreciate you. We'll move on.
Thank you.
Now, you would expect me to run over you, but I'm not going to. Would you please read us the consent agenda items by title only?
Yes, Your Honor. Approval of the minutes, September 17, 2019, executive session. Approval of the minutes, October 1st, 2019, regular council meeting. Approval of the minutes, October 8, 2019, council work session. Approval of the minutes, October 15, 2019, finance committee meeting. Approval of the finance committee recommendations for October 15, 2019. And approval of the municipal court report for the month of September 2019.
Thank you. Is there any additional items requiring further discussion?
Your Honor, the recommendation from the Finance Committee was for consideration of claims to be paid in the amount of $451,886.36, Elon credit card in the amount of $3,881.34, a manual check in the amount of $77,196.24, payroll liabilities, September 27, 2019, in the amount of $449,581.50 for a total of $982,546.44.
Thank you. The chair would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda items as presented.
So moved.
Second?
I have a motion by Councilwoman Schatze and a second by Councilman Rhoda. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Thank you. Any opposed say nay. Motion passes. Ordinance number 19-011, second reading, prohibiting engine brakes in the city limits. City Administrator's report, please.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ordinance 19-011 was originally considered on the 1st of this month. At that time, it was presented and voted upon. There were no changes of that ordinance at the time, and as such, the ordinance you have before you is the same as originally presented. The ordinance still carries with it the recommendation of approval, and we have nothing else to add, Your Honor.
Thank you. Would the city clerk please read ordinance number 19-011 by title only?
Yes, Your Honor. Proposed ordinance number 19-011 on second reading. An ordinance amending Title 12, Streets, Sidewalks, and Public Places to revise Chapter 12.12, Streets and Sidewalk Use Regulations, to establish Section 12.12.080, Engine Compression Brakes Prohibited, of the Riverton Municipal Code, and repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict therewith, and providing for an effective date.
Thank you. The chair would entertain a motion to adopt ordinance number 19-011 on second reading.
Mayor, I would make that motion.
We have a motion by Councilman Rhoda. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second by Councilman Larson. This is out of the normal, but because usually we have a public hearing on these items only on the first reading. We gave discussion on the second. Before the council enters into discussion, is there anybody in the audience wishing to address the council on engine brakes? Seeing none, does the council have any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed, say nay. Motion passes. We're now on item 10, ordinance number 19-010, third and final reading, allowing shipping containers in residential zoning. The community development director's report, please.
Thank you, Your Honor. Before you this evening for your consideration on third and final reading is ordinance 19-010, amending chapter 17.20 of the Riverton Municipal Code. Ordinance 19-010 would allow for the use of shipping containers as accessory structures within residential zoning districts. Following discussion from the October 1st, 2019 council meeting, 4 amendments have been included to the ordinance before you this evening. 1, a single height restriction. In other words, shipping containers may not be stacked. 5-foot rear and side yard setbacks have been included, a net floor area maximum of 160 square feet, as well as a size exemptions for schools and colleges. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you. Would the city clerk please read ordinance number 19-010 by title only?
Yes, Your Honor. Proposed ordinance number 19-010 on third and final reading. An ordinance amending Title 17 zoning to revise Chapter 17.20 accessory uses, Section 17.20.030 accessory building and use of the Riverton Municipal Code, and repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict therewith, and providing for an effective date.
The chair would entertain a motion to adopt the ordinance number 19-010 on third reading and on third and final reading.
So moved.
We have a motion by Councilwoman Schatza. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a second by Councilwoman Borders. Before the council enters into discussion, is there anybody in the audience that wishes to address the council regarding this item?
I would like to address the council on this.
Thank you.
My name is Linda Bebout. I'm a resident of Riverton, and Eli and I are not related. I like to let him off the hook because I tend to stick my foot in my mouth sometimes. I missed the first and second readings because I had a heavy-duty serious surgery early in September and was not recuperated in order to be able to be here to speak to it. When you defeated this ordinance in the past, there were a lot of safety issues raised, such things as people storing combustibles, animals or children getting into these containers. I have not heard anything in your discussions or in the reports in the newspaper that satisfy my concerns that these safety issues were addressed? That's my first question. My second is, Mr. Mayor, you said at one point that you can't legislate against ugly. Well, City of Riverton has a record of legislating against ugly. First of all, there somewhere on the books, there's a legislation that says, or an ordinance that says, property owners are supposed to control the weeds on their property. In 1996, I received a letter because the house I had just moved into had weeds in the alleyway. So I know that that ordinance was enforced at one time. You have an ordinance that says abandoned vehicles are not allowed to be left on the streets. Again, that's an ordinance against ugly. So I really think you have a precedent of stating and passing ordinances against ugly. And in my opinion, storage containers come to the top of the list when you come to ugly. And you did defeat this in the past. I have not seen in the newspaper, heard any reports, and I would question all of you city officials to ask if you've had a huge outcry from the public saying, what, we really wanted those storage containers. Why didn't you ask us? Has anybody here in this audience here in favor of the storage containers? No. Has anybody addressed any of you in support of storage containers?
Yes, ma'am.
How many people?
There were people here last, on the second reading that was split, the audience was split in about the half and half.
And
on
where
that
are they
subject.
tonight?
Well, we've changed the process here. Now we've allowed this group to oppose all three readings, and people are getting kind of tired of it.
I see. Well, in any case, I am strongly opposed. The city of Riverton is going downhill in looks and appearance. And I know there are people like Congressman, Councilwoman Schatza
Someday.
on committees trying to upgrade the appearance. I just cannot see that storage containers 50 feet back from somebody's front street is going to do anything to enhance the city of Riverton. And just on an off note, Councilman Larson, if you're having trouble with your Social Security, Wyoming Senior Citizens, Inc. on Adams have volunteers and employees that can help you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Bebout. Appreciate your comments.
Mayor Guard, council, staff, I share your ire of this subject. But before we get into it, I would like to make a comment on another issue that's a little more uplifting. We had our Force Committee meeting, as you know, you were in attendance, and I was just really impressed with the work that the city has put out with East Bell, sanitary sewer, the College View concrete projects, the North Federal reconstruction, Village Drive design, the South 8th East Overlaws, they're just beautiful improvements to our community. And Mr. Butterfield and his staff and Tony have just done an outstanding job in that area. When we were working on the 1%, I couldn't have envisioned anything any better, so.
And the real thanks goes to the Force Committee that you sit on. We appreciate their efforts.
Well, we're just kind of trying to dig our way through it and best we can, but the real work is being done with the building department and the engineering department and whatnot. I just wanted to throw that out before we get too deep into this shipping container issue.
Thank you, Mayor.
But I will go that way now.
Okay.
I have some petitions and whatnot that I will pass out momentarily. But I found that if I give out the information early, well, then people spend their time reading and looking through and whatnot, not paying attention to the wisdom that I'm trying to share. But I don't know how successful I'll be. And I wished I was as eloquent as Senator Eli is, that can just stand up and talk for 20 minutes off the cuff and be coherent and and be right on target. I don't have that ability, so I prepare things, and then you don't have to guess what it was that I said or what I was thinking. So, at any rate, Mayor Gard has said that citizens should be able to use their private property in any way they want. I agree in principle and insofar as reasonable. This philosophy is one of the main underpinnings of this ordinance. The attached picture is of an individual that is using his property as he wants, with apparently no zoning, enforcement, or pride in his property. And you'll see the picture momentarily. Is this what we want to encourage in our residential areas? I think not. Of those three attributes, zoning, enforcement, and pride, in my opinion, pride of ownership is the most important and seems to be what we are in short supply of in our community and among many of our citizens. If we are wanting to support job creation, another underpinning of this ordinance, why do we want to sell more shipping containers? I presume they're built in China, I'm not sure, rather than buy stick-built outbuildings that can match a home by design and color and built by our local contractors or by a local business such as Skid Structures. In order to be internally consistent, if we want to allow citizens to use their property as they choose, why not allow them to put the containers in the front yards? After all, the front yard is theirs as well. And if these containers are as attractive as we are led to believe, then all citizens should be allowed to enjoy them in their front yard, shouldn't they? It has also been suggested that because the containers cannot be seen from the front street, then they should not be a problem. I can assure you that I don't want to have a glass of wine with my wife on our patio and see shipping containers on either side of my home and across the alley. It's bad enough with some of the issues that we have now. I can assure you that shipping containers is not a solution that I want in my neighborhood. I want to say that I have great neighbors, but adding shipping containers will not help with the stress of living close together. And you know how it is when you live in a home and you've got children, and the stress of, and the neighborhood is much the same way. And some of the things that go on in the neighborhood, you wish they didn't happen, and on, but they do. And shipping containers just are not going to be anything to help ameliorate that problem. I would also like to note that for homes on a corner lot, any container on the back of their lot will be seen by the driving public. And I've also heard it said that one or two containers in a neighborhood won't hurt anything. It reminds me of the old adage that one rotten apple in a barrel will spoil the whole barrel. And I think when you start putting shipping containers up and down the alleys, then you're going to get that image of a community, and we just don't need it. The signatures that are on this petition that I'm going to give out were very easy to obtain. I found a very small number of citizens that would not sign the petition, and most were shocked to hear this ordinance was planned. I had one lady, after wringing her hand, said, "I'm just not sure how I feel about it," and so she did not sign. How can you not know how you feel about an industrial shipping container in your backyard in a residential neighborhood, especially after 3 realtors have said that in their opinion this will depress the value of a home, as well as the vast numbers of citizens that have spoken out and expressed their opposition to this plan? In my humble opinion, this is a very bad idea and not the legacy you should want for your administration, Mayor Gard. And with that, I will share the paperwork I've accumulated.
Do you want us to read it now?
Just basically, the petition
long, Ron, did this take you to gather?
Thank you, sir.
I around our neighbor, these are additional ones that were added this evening, 35 additional names that were added this evening.
We need to move forward, Mayor. We appreciate your presentation, and we'll go from there. Is there any further discussion on the council discussion?
Your Honor, were you intending on hearing from the audience at all any longer?
Oh, excuse me. I didn't see you with the mic.
Your Honor.
Mrs. Schultz, would you?
And Riverton, if we're going to, personnel, I'm here to protest also the shipping containers. I just can't see anything right about them. I can't for the life of me. I've balanced and rebalanced, and the pictures were there. Did they come from the city that you shared with us on the pictures in Portland, Oregon, where they had them and then took them out? They had used them and they were breaking down, and just like anything we have, they just didn't keep them up, and because it's not like a house. But I thank you for all your hard work that you did for us on this. I appreciate that. But I just reiterate and absolutely agree with everything he said. And I can't believe that we would put those in our backyards and let them stay there, and they are going to be beat up, be colorful, not colorful in a way that is good, but colorful in a bad way, and scraps and trash and stuff here. It's just going to happen. Nobody wants it that way. I don't either. And we all need more room. But this is not the way. And I understand why you would have them for schools. I even understand why if churches decide to have them, because I think they all take very good care of what little I've researched. They're taking very good care of their shipping containers, and it's part of who they are. They're not just residential. They're people who have a business. But school is a big business, and they have to take care of things, and they do. Their yards look good, their areas they keep up, and I'm grateful for that. But please reconsider this, passing this, because it's just not good. We've got a nice little town here, and we all love our town, or most of us do that live here. So please, please reconsider allowing shipping containers in our residential areas. And I thank you very much.
Thank you.
My name is Deanna Reach, and I'll tell you exactly where I live. I live on the corner of Sunset and Moose. And if you pass this ordinance, the thousands of dollars we have spent on our backyard, my view, if every one of my neighbors was to get a container, I would have a view of 6 containers when I would step out my back door. If I go out my front door, I would have a view of 5. And I don't know about where you guys live. I don't know what you would think of having a view of 5 containers in your backyard. And plus, on top of that, it makes the view for the police department, when you get in those small areas, older people, things like that, you can't see nothing. They can put drugs, they can do anything they want to inside those containers. And then the city's got to spend money for search warrants, all that other stuff to get into them. But most of all, it's the safety. I mean, if I can't see around my whole backyard for storage containers, I mean, it's just not safe. You don't know what's behind you. It's just like last Saturday, we had a guy at 7:30 at night. It was cold, windy, out walking our neighborhood, knocking on my door and said he's here for Fremont County to do a survey on our oppositions of things going on in our neighborhood. No clipboard, no nothing, black jacket, and a pair of gloves in his hands. I said, well, the only thing that's concerning me right now is you being at my door. I called the police power to report this because I live in a neighborhood, again, full of older people. He took off walking down Moose Street, which my house is 2 doors up from Charlie Marshall's mother. And I called the police department, told the dispatcher what the guy looked like, everything else. She says, was he still at your front door? And I said, no. Well, then we don't have time for this right now. We're busy. Hung up on me. So, if that guy was being chased by the cops, still on top of a container, who's going to see him? Right? And the car is still trailing around our neighborhood. So you guys got to look at that. I don't know where you guys live. Probably some fancy place. I don't know, but I bet you wouldn't like 5 containers in your backyard.
Ma'am, I have those in my neighborhood, and I'm in a residential A neighborhood, and the school has them, and they look really good. The school takes good care of them. So the answer to that is we do have them. We do have them in our communities.
Right, but half of my neighborhood are rentals, so who's going to maintain them and take care of them? They don't even maintain and take care of their yards. Okay?
Thank you. Appreciate it. Anybody else?
Never give up an opportunity to speak after Senator Bebout. I'm just going to repeat what the mayor said, but I'm going to say it in a different way. It's not a beauty issue. We legislate beauty. Some of you voted on not allowing cars in our front yards. We all agree that's bad. It's in the code. It's a precedent. So that is an empty argument to me. And I think it's not a freedom issue either, because we can't stack them. We can't bury them. We can't put them within 5 feet of our side yards. We can't put them in our front yards. We can't put gasoline in them. So a freedom issue, that seems hollow to me too. So what this to me comes down to is a zoning issue. Where have we zoned? Where have our city elders, these guys on the walls, decided that industrial things belong? They belong in certain zones. Those zones are designated. They're wonderful. We go there. We get our heavy machinery and our tools and our trucks. They're not in our neighborhoods. And there's a reason we don't allow car dealerships and welding shops and any other heavy industrial things in our neighborhoods. It's because they don't fit. And these boxes, these steel boxes, are specifically part of that world. It's in the title, shipping container. They are meant to be shipped. If they were on wheels, you couldn't put them in your yard. You couldn't put them in your driveway. That'd be a trailer. There's rules about that. They wouldn't fit. They don't fit into the existing code. So the fact that they're not on wheels, it's a zoning thing to me. That's all. Thank you.
Mr. Cruz, in answer to some of your questions, the reason we have put setbacks in, the reason we have addressed that you can't stack them, are all of those concerns that you brought forward, and we tried to address those concerns. And so we have amended this from its original to try to address all those things that you need, that you would like to see done. So that's why that has those amendments to it.
Well, thank you. And I hope you're not stepping on your ideology of freedom to appease me, because the appeasement of me and everyone in this room, I think, would be to do away with them. Setbacks, rules about stacking and burying, those are half steps. So I guess I would encourage you, Mayor, if you really are backpedaling on my behalf, to not do that. Let's let freedom reign. Let's put them in the front yards. Let's stack them. Let's bury them. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Good evening, George Pipliga, for the second time. And I appreciate you going through 3 public hearings for this. I missed the first meeting. Second meeting, I only came because I had a number of calls asking me about values. I addressed that last time. I've had a lot of calls in this last week. So I put it upon myself to just drive around our town looking at a 30-foot setback. And what surprised me when I started looking at that is your average block is like 6 houses. You've got a corner house. You've got 30% of the market that can have one sitting 5 foot off a street. We're thinking those storage units are going to go behind houses. Every single corner lot, the house faces one way, which leaves the backyard facing the other. And with that 30, 50-foot setback from the front, isn't going to save it from sitting right on the side street 5 feet out. We may have missed that step. I stood up here and said, get a setback, don't let them stack them out of kind of a quick maneuver. Said I didn't research the size of them. But guys, we're making a mistake there if we're gonna let that sit on every single city block. Think about it, has a cross street. And it has a house with a side and a backyard that makes that storage container sit 5 feet from the ordinance that you've drawn away from that visual street curb. That's why the lady on Sunset here is saying 5 out her front door. Because if you're on those intersections like that, you're literally going to have side yards on every side that make that storage container sit right up front, right visible. I know it's tough to write a second set of rules and another set of ordinances and keep amending that, but you've really got to look at that from that basis. Numbers are concerning too, but I don't think you sit and say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I mean, how much can you regulate? But I do ask you to think about that. That's all I'm going to say.
Thank you. There's a reason in Robert's rules that we only have one reading.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm Jim Gores. I'll speak to you once again on this subject. One of the petitions that you'll see in your packet was of my origin. I walked around the horseshoe-shaped street that I live on, and I don't know how many signatures there are. There something on the order of 30. I went to all but one house on my block. There was one person who wouldn't sign it. Everybody else, one lady said, let me sign it twice. They are dead set against this. And I really think that if you took the time to do the same for your own neighborhood, you'd probably find much the same sentiment, though I'm speculating. Once again, I would suggest that you amend this ordinance, that if you're going to leave it in place, that there be a requirement that those properties that were within approximately a 500-foot radius of your property also have to concur to you having or the shipping container on your property, because that affects every person that joins you or is within visual sight of you. And those are some of the things that we enjoy as a member of a community, is knowing that there are some safeguards for your individual property without impeding on the rights of others. And I certainly agree with the concept of, people owning property and having a right to do with it as they will. They also have a right and a responsibility to be considerate of their neighbors. And I would, at the very least, suggest that you amend the ordinance, if it's going to pass, with that provision in it. That's only fair to all involved. We have ordinances that say you have to be connected to the city sewer for obvious reasons. You wouldn't want an outhouse in your backyard. And we can go on with all sorts of other examples where you give up some of your property right freedom to the benefit of those in your community. So thank you, and I hope that you'll reconsider the road that you're traveling here. Thank you.
Thanks, Jim. Appreciate it. Anybody else? Seeing none, we'll close.
Excuse me, I forgot a couple of things. Who sells these?
Could you come to the mic? We have to.
I will. Who is selling these shipping containers in this area?
I know of only one individual that sells them in this area, and so and he has for years and years, and so he hasn't. All of the information that people are putting out there, I've had one phone call about storage containers.
Look at the petition.
Well, I think if I walked around and asked, and with something in my hand to my neighbors, I think I could get them to sign it. And so I appreciate everybody's comments.
Look at the neighborhoods and see how many houses. I'll have a view of 10.
We don't want this meeting to get out of control. Unless you have control of the floor, we need to limit our conversations. But I appreciate your thoughts. We've gone out of our way. We probably shouldn't have had another public reading. We've got ourselves in a situation that is not pleasant. And so we've looked at it and looked at it. It is a freedom issue. And when you get to looking into your neighbor's backyard and deciding what they can and can't have, are we going to regulate the height of their swings next? Mayor Wartness and I have sat in this chamber while we regulated if you could have chickens or not. And it was a terrible thing that was just going to wreck Riverton. It was just absolutely going to drive us into the ground. And actually, I can buy chicken eggs raised in Riverton from our neighbors. And I don't have any complaints about chickens. And so I think lots of times we put a lot of emphasis on these things that just do not add up to what we're talking about. I appreciate your comments, and do you have something to add?
I was at the last meeting, and I couldn't stay because somebody else was taking me home. But they had a fairly good turnout, and I understand there were some protests against the shipping containers.
There most certainly was.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am, you're right. Thank you. We have no further discussion from the audience. We'll have discussion amongst the council if we could. Is there any further discussion from the council?
Mayor, I'd like to say a couple things if I could. The one gal had brought up safety issues. You can research it, and there are not that many safety hazards that happen with them. It does happen, but you have a bigger chance of getting in a car accident than having an issue with a metal container exploding, somebody getting stuck in it, things of that nature. The setback was a safety visibility from my understanding, so you're able to see when driving down the road around the corners, just as RVs are not allowed to be on the road. And then I did want to touch on base, like you said, with the swings being a certain height, or sheds, or even weeds for that matter. One thing I hear a lot of is people saying, well, we have other issues that aren't being tended to. And I want to encourage everybody, when you see that issue, to reach out to myself, another council member, or any of the city staff, because that is how we are able to ratify those issues. We can't be everywhere all the time, so when people let us know, that's how we are able to address them. So I encourage everybody, when you see those issues, to please do let us know about that. The other thing I really wanted to point out is I live right off of Sunset. It's not a very fancy house. It's fairly mediocre, I like to think. And I see some every day when I look out my backyard. And I'd be curious how many could tell us where we have shipping containers on the bike path. Because there's a few you can see if you walk that bike path, and many people aren't aware of them. But I see them every day. So those are some of my things that I wanted to put into people's minds, just to show them the opposite, just a different perspective. How are sheds much different? I understand that they're wooden, and yes, they're built for residential, but if you go to many cities, maybe not in Wyoming in particular, but in other states, you will find shipping containers being used for storage, houses, a plethora of things such as that. And then I did look in a little bit more to the depreciation of property values, and there wasn't really a way to quantify that when talking with realtors and assessors, any more than if I were to paint my house bright pink. It's just a personal thing. So these are some of the things I did want to put out there. With that being, well, I'll just leave it at that. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilman. Any other discussion?
Your Honor.
Yes, Tim.
I'm probably beating a dead horse, but I do want to still, I guess, indicate that I am against this ordinance. I've said that before. I think that anytime we're doing anything with zoning, we're dealing with balancing freedom as a property owner and protecting your investment as a property owner. everybody here knows that there's a big impact on what happens at your house. For example, if water is coming into your property, that can be impacted from people around you. There's a lot of different ways that your property can be impacted. As Ms. Bebout said, we legislate ugly. We do. I used to be the city prosecutor. I've prosecuted at least 6 or 7 cases where people had debris in their yard, and that was legislating ugly. It was saying, well, you have something in your yard, and they were taken to court. They actually had fines assessed. The code actually provides that they could have a lien put on their property to pay back the city if we actually got to the point where we cleaned up their property. So it's nothing that's new. As near as I can tell, this was prompted, I think, the people that have come out and actually have said they want them. As far as I can tell from conversations with Mr. Carr, there's been 2 that have come and said, come to the city and have said, we want shipping containers. One of them is up in my area, which the covenants there wouldn't even allow it. Even if the city did allow it, the covenants there would not allow it. So that person wouldn't even be able to have it. I'm just glad it wasn't me.
All right.
I've been there. I've been there in court. It's embarrassing. And the other person was one that was basically, the stated intent was basically that their neighbor had one, and so they wanted to get one. I think it's something that if we allowed it, you can't go back easily. You would be allowing people to put something into their yards that basically, as we talked about last time, would usually require a crane. And so if we then decided, wait a minute, this isn't working, we want to get rid of them, it's going to require a crane to get rid of them. And I don't think it's really the right move for Riverton. I think we've had a lot of people speaking out against it. I've had, 3 other people that actually contacted me since our last meeting to express that they were against it. I've spoken with 2 people that have been in favor of it. But I even heard from, and I'll actually just read what Nikki Tippett wrote. She said, she's a local appraiser. She just sent me a text because she couldn't be here. She said, I just wanted to put in my vote that I'm anti-shipping containers. I think they are unsightly and not appropriate for residential situations. As an appraiser, I feel they'll have a negative external influence on adjacent properties. I'm sorry I'm not able to come to the meeting tonight. I appreciate you passing on my concerns. So I think for the people that are against it, I guess, depending on how the council votes, that can affect how you vote. I think we have to answer to the people. And with what I see as a lot of people that are against it, I think it's the right thing to do to say we're going to pass on the ordinance. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor, if I could just add, so I didn't want to say what my opinion on where I stood until we voted. Being a mailman, I'm fortunate enough to see most of my neighbors, and a lot of them have let me know how they feel. I will say a majority is opposed. Now, one thing I will point out is there's a lot of locations that aren't even going to be able to put them on the property because of the size limit. But I do have to agree with Mr. Hancock that my job is to reflect the opinion of our constituents. And if we have this vast of a majority that are opposed, I think we should maybe think about what we're doing here.
Thank you.
Your Honor.
Yes.
I've talked to a lot of people, too, around the community. I talk to people a lot about not just shipping containers, but ways to improve the community and things that we can do to make our community better. I feel that a lot of times within this community specifically, we have a very negative mindset. I've heard it in here tonight, and I heard it last night at another meeting that I attended. The first opinion of somebody recently has been negativity. I feel like these types of things help negativity grow. I think that if we're not explaining things with all the details, that people jump on a wagon and they just go. They just go to town on it. I don't think that things are probably, I saw these laying around town. I saw these at the food hub. I've seen them everywhere else. And nowhere on the signatures does it say anything other than, do you want shipping containers on your residential property? It didn't say specifics about the ordinance that we're doing. It doesn't say anything about setbacks or sizes or stacking or anything else. All it's saying is, you want shipping containers on your residential property. And so when I talk to individuals and I say that, do you want shipping containers on your residential property? Well, no, I don't want something like that in my front yard or my neighbor's front yard. Well, I wouldn't either. I wouldn't want someone's shed in their front yard either. So I just think that as a community, we need to work really hard at keeping each other informed and being more positive. And so, yes, maybe the majority of people do not want shipping containers on the residential properties, but are they really completely informed on the decision that they're making, saying they do not want shipping containers on the residential properties?
Thank you. Mike or Carla, are you still with us?
We're still here.
Yes,
sir.
I'm here.
I am.
Do you have any comments before we cover you up? Okay.
Mike, do you have anything?
Your Honor. This is Mike Bailey. And again, my reason for supporting this is because I fall back on that. I don't think the city needs any more things to worry about enforcing, for one. And for two, I tend to lean toward giving people the right to do what they want with their property within the bounds of the zoning that we have now. I know a lot of people think that these containers are ugly, but again, I think it's in how they take care of them. And somebody that's going to take care of their property would take care of their storage container or their storage shed or their garage or their home. And the ones that won't probably won't. And I think that's a totally separate issue. I think we've made some reasonable adjustments to this so that it restricts people into just a 160 square foot container, similar to what we do for storage sheds. We have them set back. I think we've made some reasonable accommodations so that it fits, the normal neighborhood type scenarios. So, I'm coming at this purely from people need the freedom to do as they like with their own property, and that I have no preference of wooden storage containers over metal storage containers or what color you paint your house or any of that kind of stuff. I'm purely just thinking that the city doesn't need any more rules to enforce, and we don't need the government restricting our use of our property any more than we have to. And so that's why I'm supporting this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Bailey. Councilwoman Borders, do you have anything to add?
I do, Your Honor. I can echo a lot of what Mike just said. For me, it comes down to personal freedom. I feel that if a person invests in their property and they have the right to enjoy it the way they see fit, as long as it's in a safe way, they're not harming anyone. To me, all I've been hearing as far as the negative goes is aesthetics. That's the main complaint that I'm hearing from people. And to me, I don't believe that that should negate what happens with the freedom of the others. I mean, I personally don't see that many people doing this, and I don't feel comfortable taking away the opportunity for someone to use one of these if that's what they choose to do with their own property. So I guess that's about all I have to say on that. I do really appreciate everybody's opinion and their input on this. This is not an easy thing to decide, but I'm going to fall on the side of freedom here. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Councilman Larson, do you have anything to add?
I've counted the names. There's 176 people here that share some semblance of, I don't want one. I have talked to people on Main Street, commercial area. My neighborhood, which I live above Corey, I don't get the opportunity to deliver the mail and talk to them personally, but I see them. And when the guy next to me came over and said, please use some civility, but don't allow those containers in our area, I have a big difference. I own enough land in that area that I'm the voting majority. And so if we pass this, my attorney will have a phone call in the morning and I will have a covenant put in on all the property. There will be no shipping containers in my area. That's how many votes I've got. It's not a matter of freedom, as Carla and Mike have said. We have a lot of freedom that we can do. We can paint our house pink, but if you go to sell that house, and we only sell our houses every 7 years now, that's pretty short because I think you've moved 3 times in the last 5 years or even 10 years. So we change our ideas of how houses look and what we should do. Nobody will ever put something in their yard that's going to detract from the selling price of their house. It's the largest piece of real estate or money that they've got. We, as government body, have legislated ways that people can buy houses. It is a process that takes up to 45 to 60 days to qualify for the ownership of a house. It's the largest investment you're going to do. So just to say, well, we want freedom to allow us to put anything in our house that we want to and think that that's not going to affect the sales price of our house, you're either delusional or ill-informed. Painting your house an obscene color, if that were the case, we should all have graffiti on our house. That would make it very attractive, but we don't. In fact, we try and scrub it off as fast as we can because it is a deterrent. It's called graffiti. Now, there's 176 people, plus those out in the audience, that think that having a shipping container anywhere in their yard is a bad idea. It's probably a bad idea. Thank you.
Thanks, Kyle.
Your Honor, can I address one thing real fast? Mr. Bailey had talked about enforcement, and I just wanted to note, we do not have code enforcement in the city. Whenever we're dealing with code enforcement, it's going to be something that's reported. We might have somebody from the Community Development Department go out there, but it largely will fall on the police department to write a citation or something like that. This ordinance is going to be a lot harder to enforce than just saying they're not allowed. If they're there, it'd be against the code. If they're there and we're having to figure out what's in there or something like that, it gets a lot more complicated. The last thing is, we talked about this early on, but Mr. Carr tried to figure out some towns that were about the same size and whether they allowed shipping containers. Rock Springs, Columbus, Nebraska, Windsor, Colorado, Waterton, South Dakota, Gillette, and Casper, and of all of them, only one of them have shipping containers allowed in residential areas. So that's it. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. You know, I have listened to this subject, and I agree with all the statements that have been made. Everybody has a good point to place. Senator Bebout wasn't planned. I do remember him being put on the agenda and invited, but he brings up a wonderful point. Just this last week, we lost 650 Halliburton jobs in Wyoming. 10 years ago, we all sat around and laughed when we thought they were going to be able to shut down the coal industry. How do you feel about that today? We have coal industry almost out of business in Wyoming. Over government control is where we're headed. And we can look into our neighbor's backyard and decide what they have we don't like, and they can't have it any longer. Now, Kyle, I would appreciate it. In my business, I would appreciate it if you would put a covenant on that extracts people from being able to put those storage shipping containers on your property. I would encourage that. I think that's a great idea. That would be a place that people could move into and make sure that they didn't have that opportunity. But they would know that before they bought that property. And that is the reality of what it is. Now, I don't do anything with steel. We've had lots of comments made. Those units, if you decide you can't sell your house because of your storage unit that you put in, it can easily be picked up and moved whole and moved out. If you think it's stopping your house from selling, and your realtor comes along and says, you know, your real problem about selling your house is that ugly container that you have. Mayor, you know better than anybody that we've closed public discussion from the floor. And so the reality of what we're talking about is those can be removed. They can be taken off of the property. If you buy one, if you buy a house that has one, you can remove them. We have all sorts of opportunities here. And so the reality of just limiting our neighbors because we have the idea that they're not good doesn't sit well with me. What Wyoming needs is jobs. That's what Wyoming needs. Our criminal element, we talked about earlier tonight, what we need is more jobs. What we have is too many people that have too much time on their hands to go do things they shouldn't be doing. We need more jobs. And everywhere we can push that, we need to do that. Your property, when I get home tonight, my wife's already on the other side of the fence. And she wants to look over the fence and tell somebody what they can have and can't have. And I choose not to do that. And so those of us that have the opportunity to put covenants on our property, I would encourage us to do it. That's what covenants are for. We should go out and put covenants in our neighborhood. And if you're going to walk through your neighborhood and get them to sign, you can certainly get covenants put on your property. And so with that said, I think we beat this horse to death. We gave every opportunity for the public to speak on this. My call load is 1 against and a few for. The cost of the product is going to limit itself. Very few people are going to afford these. They're 3 times the cost of a wooden shed. And so I think we're making a mountain out of a molehill. It reminds me of the chicken ordinance. And so with nothing else said, I think everybody's staff, do you have anything to add?
No, Your Honor.
Eric?
No, Your Honor.
We have gone out of our way to put limitations on what has been described from what it first was. We need these for our schools. Our schools have need of these. They have them in place. They have 40 footers in place that they're using. And if they're safe enough to put on our playgrounds, they ought to be safe enough to go anywhere else. And so I leave my discussion at that, and I would ask the city clerk to please conduct roll call.
Yes, Your Honor. Councilman Tim Hancock.
Nay.
Councilwoman Rebecca Schatza.
Yay.
Councilman Kyle Larson.
No.
Councilman Corey Rhoda.
Nay.
Councilwoman Carla Borders.
Yay.
Councilman Mike Bailey.
Aye.
Mayor Richard Gard.
Yay. Motion passes. We go to item 11, quarterly fiscal health report. Financial director's report, please. Thank you.
Before I start, I think that it's important that we recognize our citizens for coming out and expressing their opinions on some pretty controversial issues lately. Being a member of staff at the city, I've really recognized and seen democracy at work. And even though Their votes may or may not have been heard. I just encourage people to continue open communication with their elected officials at all times. So it's very important.
Thank you.
So with that, I'm not here to express opinion as much as I am facts. So we've got the City of Riverton Fiscal Health Report. Our fiscal year begins July 1st of every year, and every 3 months or quarterly. It's my privilege to provide the elected officials and the members of our community with some of the results of our financial performance thus far this year. This fiscal year, the governing body of the city approved a final fiscal year budget totaling $25,548. Let me repeat that. $25,548,479. And I want to present you with the first quarter reports. So the general fund is the primary operating fund of the city, and it's used to account for revenues and expenditures of most of the tax-supported activities of the city. In a nutshell, I would say that the general fund supports everything outside of the water, the sewer, and the sanitation fund. We do have some proprietary funds or some special funds that would consist of the 1% fund. Those monies are held separate from anything outside of the general or the enterprise funds. We are the fiscal agent for this Riverton Senior Center Endowment Fund. We do have economic development and also Riverton Rendezvous, and then our new special Rendezvous Games funds that are held outside of the general fund. The general fund does make up 44% of this year's total overall budget. And the total funds for budgeted for the general fund is $11,359,087. So the amounts referenced on the slide presented include both operational and capital revenues and expenditures. At the close of the quarter, the revenues exceeded expenditures by $286,995. Excuse me, I'm looking for my mouse here. There we go. This does include the biannual distribution of $680,055, which is allocated by the state legislature. We consider that our supplemental funding, and it's important to know that that money we typically use for one-time expenditures and for capital. We try not to use those for operating funds just because we don't know year over year what we're going to receive or if we're going to receive that for sure. Both the revenues and expenditures are below 25%. You'll notice that on the slide. This is because we have not incurred expenditures for capital projects, nor have we received revenues for grant reimbursements. The administrative services line item is particularly high at this point in the year. It's 45% of the budget. This is typical as we pay our insurance premiums and our software expenses at the beginning of the fiscal year. So this line item will normalize as we move further into the year. Weed and pest is also at 41%. This department also realizes a large amount of expense during the summer months and will taper off during the fall and winter months. So we'll start to see that also normalize. And then the victim services staff, their line item is a little high right at this moment. They did attend a conference specializing in crimes against children, and there were 6 people that did attend this conference early this fiscal year. This conference was included in the budget, and it is reimbursable by a federal grant, so we will see some reimbursements come in on that. Some other items to consider with the general fund is that we have finally received invoices from YDOT for the storm sewer and streetlight portion of the North Federal project. We've received invoices all at once for June, July, August, and September. So these items will be presented at the next Finance Committee meeting, and then depending upon our cash flow situation, we may need to split them into 2 different distributions, and at that point, it will give me the opportunity to request grant and loan funding to help pay for some of that. The balance of the funds held in reserve in the general fund for the North Federal project is $540,922. So we do still have money set aside as budgeted to help pay for that project as well. We are also still awaiting grant funding from the Federal Land and Water Conservation Fund for the expenses incurred for the splash pad project last year. So that's not money we budgeted for as far as revenues, but it is money that we will get in. We just saw the expenditures last fiscal year. And then also, finally, we have not released the contractor retainage for the splash pad project, and so we are still holding on to that until that issue has been finalized as well. Does anybody have any questions for me on the general fund at this point?
Looks good.
Okay, we'll move on to the airport fund. The airport fund closed its first quarter with a budget deficit of $461,679. Sounds scary, huh? You'll notice that the capital outlay expenses are $431,378 and 67% of the budget. These costs are associated with the airfield pavement or paint marking project that was approved in the budget. And the project is state grant funded at 90%. And staff also budgeted a transfer from the PFC revenues for the sponsor portion of the grant agreement. And the reimbursements from the state for the airport fund are still forthcoming. So next quarter, you should see things leveling out a little bit with that fund as well. Moving on to the water fund, the total budget for the water fund is $4,139,403. Year to date, the revenues do exceed the expenditures by $359,494. Again, these figures also include capital projects. The two largest capital projects that we have budgeted out of the water fund are the Riverton Water Supply Project. We budgeted $1,043,000 to complete phase 3 of the project. North Federal, $574,137. And again, we have received 4 months worth of invoices from YDOT for that. The balance that we're holding in the water fund for reserves for the North Federal project is still $789,010. So I feel that we are adequately prepared to help finalize the payments for that project. For the water fund, we need to complete the final phase of the Riverton Water Supply Project in the next 2 budget years. We also have the pending Cowboy Lane project scheduled for completion. And then in the near future, we're also going to be faced with a system-wide meter replacement project priced at approximately $2 million. Our Public Works Director, Kyle Butterfield, did apply for AML funding for that project, and unfortunately, we were not approved for that. But we do have future projects in excess of $4.5 million. So as you heard in last week's work session presentation from our rate consultant, it's important that we consider our utility rates to help pay for these future projects. The wastewater fund, the total budget is $2,553,618. Revenues outpaced expenses by a mere $32,645 this quarter. The 2 largest capital projects slated for the wastewater fund are, again, the North Federal Fund. Out of the wastewater fund, it's $471,127. The wastewater fund, again, has outstanding expenses from June through September, and we are still holding $537,194 in reserves in the sewer fund to complete the North Federal project. And our second largest project scheduled for the sewer fund this year is the Bell Street Sewer Replacement Project. That was $120,000 that we had budgeted. The project is actually complete already, and this project we're expecting final expenditures to be paid in the second quarter. In fact, the Finance Committee did approve some of those invoices in tonight's meeting. So you will see those numbers rise in the next quarter's report. For the sanitation fund, the total projected budget is $2,486,515, and at quarter end, the revenues outpaced expenditures by $65,608. There are, if you'll notice, looking at the tub grinder operations, we are at 36% due to unanticipated repairs on our tub grinder equipment. The vehicle and equipment maintenance line item in that budget is already 80% expended. This is due to some unanticipated repair work that was needed to get the tub grinder up and operational. One invoice alone was over $20,000 in order to get that up and running. So we're already looking pretty tight on the vehicle equipment and maintenance budget. Hopefully we can get through the year, but we'll see how that works. The fiscal year 20 budget also included the purchase of a sanitation truck. It was awarded last year. The truck is actually being prepared, and it's scheduled for delivery no later than mid to late December. So we will see a $300,000 expenditure approximately to help get that truck paid for. The Air Service Fund is primarily funded by the City of Riverton, Fremont County, the City of Lander, and other entities. The city also receives, as you heard from Senator Bebout this evening, reimbursements from the state of Wyoming, and we're very grateful for the state for providing funding for that service. It's something that we definitely would not be able to do without them. At the close of the first quarter, the Air Service Fund had a positive balance of $319,577. The balance is completely attributed to community contributions received at the beginning of the fiscal year. Both the City of Lander and Fremont County provided contributions for that. This will decrease as invoices are paid to Denver Air and subsequently to SkyWest Airlines. So we're receiving them at approximately about $28,000 a week is what we're paying on those now. So they've dropped a little bit, but we're always happy to see them drop a little more. Does anybody have any questions for me regarding the budget? All right, I'd like to thank each and every one of you for your support and for your trust that you put in all of us as staff to maintain this budget. We work really hard for you.
Thank you. We know that. We appreciate your efforts. It's a good job and great report. Appreciate it. We're down to reports and comments. Line item 12. Corey, would you be kind enough to tell us what you've done?
Sure, Mayor. I don't have a whole bunch to report on. I did want to touch base on the fall festival that was held downtown. Huge success. There was a bunch of people. It seems like everybody had a really great time. The day couldn't have been any better. It was a really nice day, and they had the Hunter's Ball shortly after, and that seemed to be well received. I had some other notes. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to get them tonight, so I will just leave it at that, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you for your time. Appreciate it. That was a good effort that you put forward. Appreciate that. Kyle?
No, I have nothing, Your Honor.
Thank you. Rebecca?
Community Engagement Committee, we actually were invited to attend a meeting with the Lions Club. My first time attending the meeting with the Lions Club, and they are really welcoming, awesome group of individuals. Learned about what they are doing and how we could help as a community engagement committee. So we taught them about the city website, how to add their events to that, which was really neat. They're really excited about that. And then we also said we are lending our hands if they need any other information, how to help or assistance getting information out, because they do have a lot of great events that they put on for the community and for individuals. So other than that, we're really focusing hard now on the holiday festival. That's Cameron Fearing's little baby. So yeah, we're getting excited about that. I think our season here this winter is going to be a great one for the entire community and all surrounding communities here in Riverton. So we're really excited about that. That's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilman Hancock?
We had an opportunity to meet together with the Solutions Committee. One of the things we discussed is maybe if we don't have something that we're kind of specifically working on, that we might move from monthly meetings to every 2 months, just depending. Right now, I think as we had discussed, we were going to probably move to have our next meeting be 2 months away. One of the things we discussed was trying to get more engagement, I suppose, with the citizens. We have a couple of ideas as ways we're going to try to get some feedback from some folks, meet in small groups and discuss some possibilities here. I did have an opportunity to contact treatment centers around the state. One of the things I've been working towards is trying to do what we could towards someday being able to have a residential treatment facility here. It was interesting. Some of them are completely funded by the state or almost entirely, like Central Wyoming Counseling. Some of them are completely privately funded, and some of them are kind of a hybrid of the two. I learned and was very interested to learn this, that actually at Uintah County, they have an inpatient treatment option at their jail. They have some treatment providers there, and they have 10 people at a time that can go through inpatient treatment at their jail. It's run kind of by the county. So some interesting options around the state, and something that we're definitely going to continue to look into. The other thing I wanted to discuss is that it's October, and I know that's has a lot of different meaning for certain people depending, breast cancer awareness, Halloween, my dad's birthday. Nobody knows about that. But what I wanted to talk about a little bit is that October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. I have an opportunity to work as a prosecutor as my day job, and as such, I get to have contact with a lot of different people. And it's amazing to me the contact that I have with victims of domestic violence. It is always something that it impresses me anytime I meet them, to meet somebody who has left. And by that I mean they've been in an ongoing abusive relationship and they were finally able to get the strength to get out of it. A lot of times I think in society we put the blame at the wrong place and and frequently the question is asked, why doesn't she leave? I've seen that a lot. And the reality is it's a difficult situation to find yourself in. Victims of domestic violence will often find that their victimizer, the person who's abusing them, will make promises, will say it's not going to happen again. They will control them financially, make it so that, if you leave, you're not going to have any money. Kids often get used as a bargaining chip in such a relationship where it's like, well, how are you going to take care of the kids if you leave me? I'm the one that has a job. And it's just, there's this emotional, social, financial manipulation that abusers engage in. And whenever I meet victims that have left, it just makes me want to clap, because they've been able to somehow find the strength to get out of that relationship. And I have encouraged more and more women, although it's not just women, let's be clear, more and more women or men to be able to stand up and identify themselves as survivors of domestic violence. I think it will give strength to the other people that have had to live with an abuser and help them realize that they can do it too. So I guess my message, I suppose, tonight would be to encourage, if anyone's in a relationship like that, there is help. There is help. And I just was barely speaking with the Coalition Against Domestic Violence. Their phone number is 856-0942, and they are available at all times. It's a tough situation to be in, and I think that if there's one thing that hopefully we can get out of everything I've said, it's that let's stop trying to put the blame on the abused and start putting it on the abuser, and recognize what's going on and support the abused in being able to get out of their situation instead of blaming them. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thanks, Tim. Was that number 856-0942?
That's correct.
That's great information, and we'd appreciate it, people to fall back on that and use it. Carla, are you still with us? Mike?
I'm here, Your Honor.
Carla, do you have anything to add?
I really don't. Since our last meeting, I took off on vacation, and I've just been enjoying that, and looking forward to being back next week.
Thank you. I know how hard it is to call in, and I appreciate it. Thank you for doing it.
Absolutely. No problem.
Mike, are you there? Appears not. In the last little bit, we've had a lot of things happening, and I really would like to thank the staff that has been supportive. Our Force Committee has been outstanding. Our FAST Committee has really brought the ball to where we need it to be. Thank you, Senator Bebout. You've been there all the way, inspiring and helping, and I appreciate your time and effort on our behalf. We just have some fantastic an organization that really does work, and I appreciate all your efforts. The police department has done an exceptional job, and I can always count on you. I appreciate it. We did some things this week. We've been pushing hard for juvenile and adult corrections. And we find ourselves at and there's been articles in the paper that speak to this. I've had long conversations with the sheriff, with our own PD, with Pat LeBron, who we really appreciate his conversations, with our own city attorney. We've met with injury prevention, and injury prevention has come up with ankle monitor situation where we can put ankle monitors on people. And last week, we put our first 2 ankle monitors on. We have no municipal prisoners in the jail system, 0. And so that forces us to sign an agreement with Worland to send prisoners to Worland. And that is an executive decision done by Tony Tolstead and the police chief. Both of them looked over the documents, had problems with them, rewrote some of those suggestions and sent them back. But they eventually signed, so we have the ability to send prisoners to Worland. I appreciate that on everybody's part. The director of WHAM was in Riverton last week, went out of his way. Tony's good friends with him, went out of his way to sit down with us and discuss some things that we're trying to get done with the governor. And Eli will have that letter to you, and we'll take any help we can get from your side of that to explain what we need to do there. I have had a call with the DOJ from the United States government, and Rosa and I are getting to be real good friends. And we do have a problem, and we're working on it. We are doing everything we can do to equalize the problems that we have in Riverton. We realize they're extensive. And our meeting with Pat LeBron is just difficult. I mean, the police hands are tied, the prosecutor's hands are tied. We've got to make some real changes and probably legislative changes to get things moving. 120 some of our prisoners in our county jail are just there waiting on processing where they need to go. I was really tickled to be able to speak to welcome the state Republican women to Riverton. They brought their convention to Riverton, which I really appreciate. I can't say that enough. It's awfully kind of Pepper and your organization. I know that's where the rubber meets the road, and we do appreciate your efforts to bring that to Riverton. We are central. Senator Bebout's idea of getting some committees out of Cheyenne and into the center of the state would be beneficial to us. Those are all great ideas. We've met with Representative Salzar about workman's comp. When we take a prisoner in and he's in our custody, we now have to cover him for workman's comp. And Kristen, we bent her arm every direction we could bend her arm, but she held fast that that's not a great idea to put prisoners on the city's workman's comp. And so Tim Salzar is going to take that into the legislature. It's probably not got a lot of legs, but we got to start the conversation someplace. And so he's willing to take that to the Attorney General, the State Attorney General, and see where we stand. I apologize for the break-in, and we are doing everything we can to support you and to take care of that. Our officers spent many hours running those youth to the ground again, the second time in 2 weeks, and we do understand your frustration. We share that same frustration. I got an opportunity to drive a float in the homecoming parade. Nobody noticed me. I waved a lot, and people were looking at the stuff on the back, didn't see me. But it was nice to see the size of that parade. It was enormous. I don't think I've ever seen one that big in Riverton, Wyoming. A real positive thing. The youth and adults. We have a lot of ways to go. My wife works in that system, and if you can believe it, the kids couldn't get off the curbs. They had to sit on the curbs, and the teachers and the paras had to go out and capture the candy and throw it back to the curb, and then the candy was collected, and then when we got back to school, it was divided up so that everybody got the same amount of candy. And then we wonder from time to time where we get these socialistic ideas in our head that we have. And so it's pervasive in our society to try to make everything we do equal and fair. And I just appreciated that. The other thing that I think is fantastic is the Harvest Festival that brings the people out and gives them a place to go, to enjoy their community, to see things function and to see things work. I can't say enough about our enhancement committee. They are hard chargers and they do a good job. Short of that, I think I'm missing a few things, but I'll let those go. I'm thankful for staff. Tony, I jumped you and went right to mine. Do you have anything to add?
Your Honor, just a couple items, noting that our ECDA is next week. Airport board is Friday at 8 a.m. at the airport. One of the items that council had talked about previously is the 56 permit, and we finally got a time to go over Game and Fish comments this week. So the mayor and I will be attending a meeting with Game and Fish, hear what they have to say about what we submitted, and we'll see if we can move that, if there are those requests or any changes they propose are not too arduous, then we'll bring that back. It may be another topic of conversation for council, but we'll see. We did receive a report from the farmers market. I'd forward that on, but we had 2 farmers markets this year, and one was they came and they wanted to be in our parking lot, and we said, yeah, that's great. Come on down. That was on Saturday. Some of those same people took part in the Wednesday farmers market. We were told that any time a farmers market or any kind of market changes locations, they tend to have a drop. People don't know about it, and where'd it go? Okay, I don't know if I want to go down there. And there was some apprehension about going down to City Park. Councilwoman Schatz and I both spoke to that group last winter, I believe, and a number of members of council have spoken to them, and those fears were alleviated because even with the change, their numbers were significantly better, even for a first year. Participation, average purchase, every single number, every single metric they had went up, and that's on their report. We were incredibly happy to have them down there, and both markets were very, very happy. So we look forward to working with them again next year. And as has already been said, I'd kind of like to say thank you to the staff that made it happen. There were changes that got made, parks, collections, different people. Some of the senior staff worked with them on different items and really made it work and desirable. So we are appreciative of that. They did a great job. And the last thing I'd end on is just kind of a request that we have a Halloween map we're putting together. We got to it a little late, so obviously we can't get everything in the month of October, but we're trying to get stuff put together, and we're just at the beginning about ready to release that. So it doesn't mean we can't modify it as we're going along. If anybody has a Halloween event that they are doing, try to get it to us as fast as you can. We're going to try to get it on there, and you can just contact City Hall and we'll get you directed accordingly. That's all, Your Honor.
Thank you, Tony. Anyone else? We don't have an executive, do we?
No, Your Honor.
Does anybody know the score of the football game?
Your Honor, just 1 second.
Kyle.
Last Friday night, I attended the football game up at the stadium, and fortunately, we had enough shots left from last year to keep the cannon warmed up because we utilized a 50-plus to 7-plus game, and it was a lot of fun, and everybody was happy at the end results. But the liveliness of the crowd and the community coming together like that was really a lot of fun to celebrate the homecoming, the win, and also the noise that it provided, and it was a lot of fun watching that football game.
Thanks, Kyle. Appreciate that.
I don't know if Torrington was happy, but.
There always has to be somebody that isn't.
There was no socialism there. It was pure slaughter.
Without any objections, we stand adjourned at 9:08.